Have you ever wondered why some people seem to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders and still move forward with grace, while others crumble under the smallest pressure? There's something almost mystical about how certain individuals transform their heaviest burdens into their greatest sources of strength. They don't ignore their pain. They don't pretend everything is fine. They simply understand something that most people never learn. What if I told you that the secret lies not in avoiding your burdens, but in completely changing how you carry them? That's exactly what J.R.R. Tolkien understood when he wrote about Frodo's journey with the ring, when he explored the nature of suffering and redemption through his characters. Tolkien didn't just create fantasy stories. He revealed profound truths about the human condition, about how we can transform our deepest struggles into our most powerful assets. Imagine if you could look at your problems not as obstacles to overcome, but as teachers that have come to show you who you really are. Imagine if every burden you carry could become a bridge to a stronger, wiser, more authentic version of yourself. That's where true power lies, not in the absence of struggle, but in the complete transformation of how you relate to struggle itself. When you understand this, when you truly grasp this fundamental shift in perspective, you don't just survive your burdens, you become someone entirely different because of them. And those who thought they knew your limits, those who expected you to break under pressure, suddenly realize they never understood your true capacity at all. Tolkien said that even the smallest person can change the course of the future. And this wasn't just about physical size or apparent weakness. He was talking about something much deeper, about the hidden strength that emerges when you stop fighting your burdens and start understanding them. Now think about this: when you change your relationship with suffering, who around you becomes uncomfortable? Who tries to keep you stuck in the role of the victim? The one who complains, the one who needs saving. This reveals more about them than about you, and it mainly shows how much your growth threatens their need to feel superior or needed. You keep carrying burdens in the old way, struggling and complaining and seeking sympathy, to maintain a dynamic that was never really helping you grow. And with every complaint, every cry for help that doesn't lead to real change, every moment you choose to remain a victim of your circumstances, you give away a piece of your power. At the end of the day, what's left is not just tiredness, but a deep sense that you're living beneath your potential, that you're carrying weights that could actually be wings if you knew how to transform them. But I'll tell you why. Because you are still carrying your burdens the way others taught you to carry them, the way society expects you to carry them, like dead weight instead of living teachers. This video is not about pretending your problems don't exist. It's about fundamentally changing your relationship with them. It's about learning what Tolkien understood about the transformative power of accepting our darkest moments and finding meaning within them. This process begins when you understand that your burdens are not punishments. They are not evidence that you're weak or broken or unlucky. They are the raw material from which your character is forged. So I ask you now, looking into your eyes, how long will you continue to carry your burdens like a victim instead of like a hero on a journey? How long will you let your struggles define you instead of refine you? Maybe it's time to change your entire approach, to become someone who doesn't just endure suffering, but transforms it into wisdom. Because when you stop carrying burdens the old way, everything changes. You have been taught to see your struggles as problems to be solved, obstacles to be removed, evidence that something is wrong with your life. Since childhood, you have been conditioned to believe that happiness means the absence of difficulty, that a good life is one free from pain and challenge. But here's a truth that perhaps no one has told you with this clarity. This approach to burdens is not just ineffective, it is actively harmful. And as long as you continue to think that your problems are mistakes, that your struggles are evidence of failure, that your burdens are punishments, you will remain trapped in a cycle of resistance that only makes everything heavier. Do you know why? Because fighting your burdens makes you seem weak, and everything that appears weak attracts more pressure. People start to see you as someone who breaks under stress, someone who can't handle life's challenges, someone who needs to be protected or pitied. They press your emotional buttons when they want to feel superior, when they need someone to save, when they require validation of their own strength, and then they move on to their own lives. But you don't realize this because you are trapped in an illusion that carrying burdens visibly, dramatically, will make someone want to help carry them for you. But it doesn't work that way. Tolkien spoke about what he called the eucatastrophe, the sudden joyous turn when all seems darkest. And it is exactly this principle that can transform how you carry your struggles. You say you can't handle it when you are actually growing stronger. You broadcast your problems immediately, even when doing so weakens you. You explain your struggles, justify your pain, defend your right to suffer, as if you owe the world an explanation for your humanity. But the truth is that the more you place your burdens at the center of everyone else's attention, the more you disappear into the identity of the sufferer. Carrying burdens visibly all the time is a subtle form of self-betrayal. It is a disguised way of seeking sympathy, avoiding responsibility, trying to control how others see you through your pain. But this control comes at a price, and the price is your transformation. It is your power being distributed to others as if they could somehow carry what only you can carry. People who want you to remain visibly burdened all the time, in fact, do not want to help you. They want what your struggle provides them: a sense of their own strength, someone to feel sorry for, a distraction from their own unresolved pain, emotional validation of their role as the helper. But when you change, when you start carrying your burdens differently, when you refuse to be defined by your struggles, those same people get irritated, accuse you of being cold, say you are not sharing enough. It's not because you changed for the worse. It's because you stopped being functional for their emotional needs. And here's the crucial point. The more visibly you carry your burdens, the less power others believe you have. Because what appears broken becomes an object of pity, not respect. No one follows what they perceive as wounded. No one respects what appears to be constantly struggling. So now stop and think. Who truly deserves to know about your struggles? Who deserves to witness your transformation? Who has earned the right to see your vulnerability? Or better yet, who deserves to see only your strength? But before answering that, we need to understand one essential thing. Why do we broadcast our struggles so much? Why do we make our pain so visible? What is behind this almost automatic desire to share our burdens with everyone? The answer lies in what Tolkien understood about the nature of courage, and that is what we will talk about next. Because your struggles are not meant to be carried alone, but they are also not meant to be carried by everyone. And if you don't learn to be selective about who witnesses your journey, someone will use your vulnerability against you. Tolkien did not see human suffering as a meaningless accident or a cruel joke of fate. For him, our struggles are like a forge, and every challenge, every burden, every moment of pain is working to shape something precious within us. The question is, are you conscious of what your struggles are creating in you, or are you letting them shape you unconsciously, randomly, without purpose or direction? Every time you react to your burdens with pure resistance, you are wasting their transformative power. When you curse a difficulty that is actually teaching you resilience, when you rage against a loss that is showing you what truly matters, when you fight against a limitation that is redirecting you toward your authentic path, when you reject the lessons that are trying to emerge from your pain, you are spending your life force on what could actually nourish your growth. Tolkien was clear that not all those who wander are lost. The more you fight what is happening to you, the more you bind yourself to suffering without meaning. People who live constantly overwhelmed by their burdens are not weak, they are unconscious. And do you know what happens to someone who lives unconsciously carrying their struggles? They become bitter, and when you are bitter, you become easy prey for those who want to keep you small. Manipulative, opportunistic, and emotionally needy people can sense this. They notice that you do not know how to find meaning in your struggles. that you react to every challenge as if it were an attack, that you're always trying to escape what life is trying to teach you, and they take advantage of it. Tolkien said that a mature soul is one that knows how to find gold in the darkness. This means knowing how to extract wisdom from pain without becoming cynical, knowing how to learn from loss without becoming closed-hearted, knowing how to grow from challenges without becoming hardened. Because true strength is not in avoiding struggles, it is in consciously transforming them into character. And this is only possible when you know yourself well enough to recognize the gifts hidden within your difficulties. How many times have you wasted months resenting a situation that was actually redirecting you toward something better? How many times have you spent years fighting against a limitation that was actually protecting you from a worse fate? How many times have you cursed a loss that later proved to be the beginning of something more authentic? This is energy being drained without wisdom. You are keeping alive resentments that should have died long ago and feeding resistance that only exists because you insist on fighting what is trying to transform you. Your struggles are like a force field. When consciously engaged, they create presence. You enter a room and command respect because people sense that you have been tested and have emerged stronger. But when unconsciously carried, you become fragile, reactive, someone who breaks under pressure, and the world has no mercy for those who have not learned to transform their pain into power. Therefore, start observing your own relationship with difficulty. What makes you immediately resist? What makes you lose your center when faced with challenges? These are the exact points where your transformative energy escapes, and that is where you need to work, not to become numb or indifferent, but to be conscious, to be sovereign over your own growth process. And here comes one of Tolkien's greatest insights. When you consciously engage with your burdens, you break the victim narratives that others project upon you, and that bothers many people, because now we are entering a territory that few want to explore, that of conscious suffering, and why your transformation completely disrupts the roles that others need you to play. Get ready to understand how some people feed off your unconscious pain, and why your conscious growth completely disarms these dynamics. You are about to see clearly those who have always needed you to remain broken. You think you are choosing how to respond to your struggles. You believe your reactions to difficulty are conscious decisions, but the truth is more complex. Most of your responses to burdens are programmed by others' expectations, and those who understand this keep you trapped in cycles that serve them, not you. Unconsciously struggling people don't need to be directly controlled, manipulated, or forced into victim roles. Others just trigger the patterns you've left unexamined, and you react always the same way. Tolkien called this the power of the ring, the psychological mechanism through which our struggles become chains that bind us to old patterns, old identities, old limitations. But there is another side to this phenomenon that few notice. While you are unconsciously carrying your burdens, you also become the receptacle for others' needs to feel superior, helpful, needed. The more visibly you struggle, the more you become a canvas for these projections. You know that friend who always has advice for your problems, but never seems to solve their own. That family member who feels better about themselves when you are suffering. That person who praises your strength, but only when you are visibly struggling. None of this is by chance. They are not relating to your potential. They are relating to your pain, to the role of the sufferer that you agree to play. And why do you agree? Because you are afraid of being seen as ungrateful, afraid of seeming like you don't need anyone, afraid of appearing too strong or too independent. The most effective way to keep someone small doesn't happen through direct attack. It happens through the subtle reinforcement of their victim identity. When you feel that you owe others an explanation for every struggle, when you believe you need to be visibly suffering to deserve support, when you think you must share every burden to prove you are human, even when it keeps you stuck in patterns that destroy your power from within. And here's the central point. Those who benefit from your unconscious suffering don't need to actively harm you. They just need you to keep carrying your burdens the same unconscious way. But when you stop reacting to difficulty with the same old patterns, the game changes. When you start finding meaning in your struggles, transforming them internally instead of broadcasting them externally, growing from them instead of being diminished by them, the projections begin to crumble. The identity of the sufferer that they put on you falls away, and this leaves people unsettled because they no longer know how to relate to you. And worse, now they are forced to look at their own unresolved pain, and not everyone is prepared for that. Your transformation is a threat because it forces others to confront their own stagnation. The strength you develop through conscious suffering reveals the weakness they maintain through unconscious complaining. And then comes the attack, a criticism that you have become cold, not because you are wrong, but because you stop serving as a convenient mirror for their own unresolved struggles. Tolkien said, "I will not say do not weep, for not all tears are an evil." When you transform your relationship with struggle, when you stop carrying burdens the old way, other shadows begin to emerge, and this is unbearable for those who have always used your pain as an escape from their own. But what about you? Are you ready to deal with the discomfort of being seen as too strong, too independent, too transformed for those who need you to remain small? Are you ready to endure the loneliness that comes after you stop playing the victim role? Because it is precisely in that space of conscious solitude that a new kind of strength is born. And that is what we will talk about now. In the next part, you will understand why conscious suffering can be the most transformative force in human experience, and how it completely changes not just how you carry burdens, but who you become through carrying them. The modern world teaches you to avoid pain at all costs. Everyone wants quick fixes, easy solutions, ways to skip the difficult parts of growth and arrive at happiness without earning it through transformation. But there is a power that few understand and even fewer embrace, the power of conscious suffering. Not the suffering of victimhood or self-pity, but aware, intentional, profoundly transformative engagement with difficulty. The kind of suffering that is not destruction, but reconstruction. Tolkien saw conscious suffering not as punishment, but as the highest form of alchemy. When you stop running from your burdens, you begin to understand them. And by understanding them, you see patterns that previously controlled you unconsciously. Emotional cycles, self-defeating behaviors, the ways you have been unconsciously choosing suffering over growth. Conscious suffering allows for transformation, and transformation is dangerous for those who need you to remain the same. Have you noticed how some people become uncomfortable when you stop complaining about your problems? When you stop seeking their advice for the same issues over and over? When you simply begin to transform your struggles internally instead of processing them externally? It's not because they don't care about you. It's because your conscious growth disrupts their familiar role in your life. While you suffer unconsciously, you are still playing the game they understand. But when you begin to suffer consciously, when you transform your pain into wisdom instead of drama, you change the rules, and that unbalances anyone who thrives on being needed in the old ways. True conscious suffering is not the display of pain. It is mastery over your own transformation. It is the refusal to be defined by what happens to you. It is the conscious choice to find meaning in difficulty instead of just enduring it. Tolkien said that the process of becoming who you truly are requires what he called the long defeat, not because you are meant to lose, but because transformation takes time, requires patience, demands that you stay conscious, even when unconsciousness would be easier. Only through conscious engagement with difficulty can you hear what your struggles are actually trying to teach you, without the noise of self-pity, without the distraction of seeking sympathy, without the escape of blaming others. But don't be fooled. Conscious suffering has a price. It will distance you from people who only knew how to relate to your pain. It will make you incomprehensible to those who only saw you through the lens of your struggles. It will make you seem too strong, too independent, too transformed for those who need broken people around them to feel whole. But all of this is a reaction from those who never wanted to witness your power, only your weakness. And here is the hard truth. The more you mature in how you carry your burdens, the more selective you become with who gets to witness your process. Because you understand that each moment of vulnerability is sacred, and not everyone deserves access to your transformation. Sometimes conscious suffering is not about sharing, it is about sovereignty. It is the language of those who no longer need others to validate their pain in order to transform it. Conscious suffering is uncomfortable for others because it forces them to confront their own unconscious patterns, their own unexamined pain, and this discomfort reveals more about their relationship with growth than any complaint of yours could reveal. You don't need to explain your transformation. It speaks for itself, and those who feel threatened by it reveal how much they depended on your unconscious suffering to avoid facing their own. But the most powerful conscious suffering is not the one that disturbs others. It is the suffering that reconstructs you from within, the engagement with difficulty that connects you to something beyond temporary comfort. It is in this internal space, free from others' need for you to remain the same, that you begin to discover what Tolkien called the secret fire, the indestructible essence within you that grows stronger through conscious engagement with challenge. And this is precisely what we will talk about in the next part, because it's not enough to just change how you carry your burdens. You need to understand why some struggles choose you, why certain difficulties seem to follow you, and most importantly, how to recognize when your burdens are actually invitations to become someone you never imagined you could be. It's time to learn to read the secret language of your struggles. It's no use understanding all of this intellectually if in practice you continue to carry your burdens the same unconscious way, complaining about the same problems without extracting their lessons, seeking sympathy for struggles that could be transformed into strength, maintaining the same relationship with difficulty that keeps you small instead of grows you. Awareness without transformation is just another form of sophisticated suffering. True change begins when you firmly decide to become conscious about how you engage with every challenge that comes your way. And this requires what Tolkien called the discipline of hope, not naive optimism, but the conscious choice to find meaning and growth opportunity in every burden. Conscious burden carrying is not about being stoic, unemotional, or pretending difficulties don't affect you. It's about no longer being unconscious in how you process them, how you learn from them, how you allow them to shape you. It's about taking complete ownership of your transformation process. And this starts with recognizing that every burden carries within it the seeds of your next level of growth. Not responding to difficulty with immediate victimhood, breathing before reacting to challenges, extracting the lesson before focusing on the complaint, approaching your struggles as a student instead of as a victim, saying, "What is this trying to teach me?" instead of "Why is this happening to me?" Saying, "How can this make me stronger?" instead of "This isn't fair." But here's the most important part. You don't need to justify your growth to anyone. You don't need to explain why you no longer carry burdens the way others expect you to. You owe nothing to anyone but your own evolution. And this, for many people, is unforgivable. Because when you refuse to remain stuck in victim consciousness, you take away others' power to keep you in emotional patterns where you are always the one who needs saving, understanding, or sympathy. Tolkien understood that every process of authentic growth goes through what he called the Grey Havens, not a place of depression, but a sacred transitional space, a time of conscious solitude where you learn how to relate to difficulty without immediately externalizing it, where you rebuild your identity not based on your struggles, but on how consciously you transform them, where you discover that your burdens are not weights, but wings when you know how to carry them. Want to know a good measure of your evolution? Observe who becomes uncomfortable when you stop complaining about the same problems. Observe who tries to pull you back into unconscious suffering when you begin to transform. Observe who accuses you of being different when you finally start to grow from your struggles, instead of just enduring them. These are not signs that you are wrong. They are proof that you have begun to free yourself from the unconscious patterns that once defined you. Being conscious about your burdens is uncomfortable at first. You will feel like you are being too hard on yourself. You will think you are not allowing yourself to feel your pain fully. You will hear from others that you are being too analytical about your emotions. But this is part of the transformation process. You have spent your life being conditioned to unconsciously react to every difficulty. It's natural that conscious engagement feels foreign, not only to you, but to everyone who benefited from your old patterns. Conscious burden carrying is the foundation of authentic power. When you say no to unconscious suffering, you are saying yes to conscious transformation. When you refuse to be defined by what happens to you, you are affirming that your character is worth more than temporary comfort. And when you stop broadcasting every struggle, you begin to be respected for your strength, rather than pitied for your pain. But not everyone is ready for this type of presence, because your conscious transformation will expose their unconscious patterns. It will reveal how much they depended on your victim identity to feel better about their own lives. And it is at this moment that the real test comes: the loneliness, the misunderstanding, the feeling that you are becoming someone others don't recognize, when in fact you are just becoming who you are always meant to be. But what happens after that? What comes after you stop carrying burdens the old way? What is born from conscious engagement with difficulty? In the last part, we will talk about this, about the rebirth that only happens when you have the courage to transform your pain into power, your struggles into strength, your burdens into bridges, to a life you never imagined possible. It's time to understand why the loneliness of conscious growth is actually the doorway to authentic freedom. When you stop carrying your burdens unconsciously, something profound begins to happen. First comes the discomfort, an uncomfortable feeling that you are not processing your pain the normal way. You wonder if you are being too hard on yourself, if you are not allowing yourself to feel fully, if you are becoming too detached from your own humanity. But gradually this discomfort transforms. It begins to create space, to build strength, to forge character. And then comes a new kind of solitude, but not the solitude of being abandoned by others. It is the solitude of total self-possession, your own, a solitude of the conscious, the solitude of one who no longer betrays their growth to keep others comfortable. And in that space where there was once unconscious reaction, conscious response enters. Where there was once victim mentality, creator consciousness enters. Where there was once dependence on others to process your pain, a new kind of inner strength enters. The strength of being whole within yourself, regardless of what challenges you face. Tolkien said that the process of becoming who you really are requires you to walk alone for a while, that you must separate from the collective unconsciousness, that you must stop carrying burdens the way everyone else expects you to. And that is exactly what you are doing when you decide to become conscious about your relationship with difficulty. You are not avoiding growth, you are claiming it. It is at this point that you stop being someone who is shaped by circumstances and become someone who shapes character from circumstances. You cease to be defined by what happens to you and begin to be defined by how consciously you transform what happens to you. The people who feel uncomfortable with your conscious approach to struggle, they reveal that they never wanted your strength. They wanted your weakness. And now that you no longer provide unconscious suffering for them to feel superior to, they don't know what to do with you. And that is liberating. You will lose people who only knew how to relate to your pain, but you will find yourself. You will distance yourself from those who need you to remain unconscious, but you will connect with your authentic power. You will become misunderstood by some, but finally you will begin to be respected by those who matter. Because when you are no longer available for unconscious suffering, you become someone rare, someone who has learned to transform lead into gold. And don't be fooled. This is not just survival. This is metamorphosis, the beginning of a life where you are no longer available for victim consciousness, for unconscious patterns, for relationships that require you to remain small. Now you only accept interactions that resonate with your growth, with your evolution, with your commitment to conscious transformation. And if you have made it this far, it's because a part of you is already ready for this new way of being. A part of you has already understood that being comfortable in your struggles means nothing if for that you have to abandon your potential for growth. True self-love begins when you choose conscious transformation, even if it means being misunderstood by those who are not ready for their own growth. Now tell me, are you ready to carry your burdens like a hero on a journey of transformation rather than like a victim asking for rescue? Are you willing to pay the price of conscious growth, even if it means walking alone for a while? If this message touched something deep within you, if it revealed a truth you have always known but never articulated, know that you are ready for this transformation. The journey of conscious burden carrying is not easy, but it is the only path that leads to authentic strength, to real wisdom, to the kind of person you were always meant to become. Your struggles are not mistakes. They are not punishments. They are not evidence that something is wrong with your life. They are the raw material from which your authentic self is being forged. And when you learn to engage with them consciously, you discover what Tolkien knew all along, that even the darkest moments contain the seeds of the greatest transformations. So carry your burdens, but carry them consciously. Carry them with purpose. Carry them as someone who knows that every challenge is an invitation to become more than you ever imagined possible. Because when you do, you will never carry your burdens the same way again.